July 25th, 1944. The sky over Bavaria, Germany. The altitude is 28,000 feet. The air is thin, freezing, and deceptively calm. Inside the cockpit of a de Havilland Mosquito PR-16, Flight Lieutenant A.E. Wall checks his gauges. For the Royal Air Force and the United States Army Air Forces, the Mosquito is the ultimate insurance policy. It is made of wood, it is light, and it is powered by two massive Merlin engines. It is the fastest piston engine aircraft in the Allied inventory. When a Mosquito pilot drops the throttle, he does not fight. He simply leaves the enemy behind. No German fighter can catch him. Flight Lieutenant Wall is on a standard reconnaissance run, hunting for movement around Munich. He feels safe. The physics of 1944 aerial warfare dictate that he is untouchable. Then, the impossible happens. Wall checks his six, the area directly behind his tail. A moment ago, the sky was empty. Now, there is a dot. A dark silhouette against the glaring white of the cloud deck. He is not concerned. He assumes it is a Focke-Wulf 190 or a Messerschmitt Bf 109. He pushes his throttle forward, engaging the boost. The Mosquito surges to over 400 miles per hour. In any standard engagement, the dot behind him would shrink and fade away. But the dot does not shrink. It grows. It grows with a terrifying, unnatural velocity. Wall stares at the rearview mirror, his brain struggling to process the geometric rate of closure. This object is not gaining on him by 10 miles per hour or 20 miles per hour. It is closing the distance at a speed that defies the known limits of propeller aviation. It is eating up the sky at nearly 150 miles per hour, faster than the Mosquito's top speed. As the object screams closer, the confusion in the cockpit turns to a cold, primal fear. Wall strains to see the propeller discs. Every plane has them. The spinning blur of blades is the signature of flight. There are no propellers. The silhouette is sleek, shark-like, with swept-back wings that look severe and aggressive. Under each wing hangs a pod, but they are not fuel tanks. They are black maws gaping open. And from the rear of these pods, there is no exhaust smoke from a piston engine. There is only a shimmering heat haze that distorts the air, trailing behind the craft like a ghost. Wall banks hard, a desperate maneuver to throw off the pursuer. The enemy aircraft does not bank, it glides. It cuts through the turn with a grace that seems to ignore inertia. It opens fire. Cannons tear through the air, missing the Mosquito by mere feet. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the phantom machine climbs. It goes vertical. It shoots upward into the stratosphere at an angle that would stall any piston engine in existence. It vanishes into the Sunday. Flight Lieutenant Wall is left trembling in a wooden plane that suddenly feels obsolete. He has just witnessed the death of an era, though he does not have the language to describe it yet. He grabs his radio, but what can he report? He has seen a plane without an engine. He has seen a machine that moves like a rocket, but flies like a glider. Back at the Allied intelligence debriefing rooms in London, the report is met with skepticism. Pilots are tired. Oxygen deprivation causes hallucinations. A plane without propellers? A plane that travels at nearly 600 miles per hour? It is physically impossible. The laws of aerodynamics, as understood by the average squadron commander in 1944, say that compressibility, the shock waves of air building up at those speeds, would tear a plane apart. But the reports keep coming. This is the channel Cold War Impact. We explore the hidden technologies and shadow conflicts that forge the modern world. If you want to understand the machinery behind the history, make sure to subscribe and uncover the classified files with us. August 28, 1944. Major Joseph Myers and Second Lieutenant Manfred Croy of the US Army Air Forces are flying P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft over Brussels. The P-47 is a brute, a massive, heavy fighter that dives like a lead weight. They spot a bandit below them. It is the same silhouette, swept wings, no props. Myers and Croy dive. They have the advantage of gravity. They scream down from the heavens, their engines roaring, airframes shaking as they approach terminal velocity. They should be able to catch anything. The German pilot below them simply accelerates. He does not dive. He flies level, and in level flight, he walks away from the diving Americans as if they are standing still. The radio chatter across the European theater explodes with confusion. American bomber crews in B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft report silver streaks tearing through their formations. They describe attacks that happen so fast the gunners cannot track the target. The turrets traverse too slowly. By the time the gunner sees the enemy is already a mile away. The intel officers can no longer deny the reality. They scour the pre-war patent files. They look at vague reports from spies in Berlin from 1939. They start to piece together a terrifying picture. The Germans have solved the problem of flight without propellers. They are using a propulsion system that sucks in air, compresses it, ignites it, and blasts it out the back. They call it the turbo, but knowing what it is doesn't explain how it exists. The metallurgy required to build an engine that can withstand that heat is rare. The fuel consumption is theoretically astronomical, and yet, here it is, hunting over the skies of Europe. The Allied pilots are baffled. Their confidence is shattered. For years, the American P-51 Mustang aircraft and the British Spitfire aircraft owned the sky. They were the apex predators. Now, they are prey. They are fighting an enemy that operates in a different dimension of speed. The mystery deepens when a piece of gun camera footage is recovered. It shows a blur, a shape that looks unfinished, almost alien. Intelligence analysts freeze the frame. They measure the wingspan. They calculate the thrust. The numbers are terrifying. If the Germans can mass-produce this machine, the air war is over. The thousands of bombers pounding German industry will be slaughtered. The invasion of Europe could stall. The balance of power, which had firmly tipped toward the Allies, is suddenly trembling. But there is something strange about the attacks. The turbojets appear sporadically. They attack singly or in pairs. They are hesitant. Sometimes they engage, sometimes they run. American commanders are scratching their heads. If the Nazis have a weapon that makes every propeller plane obsolete, why aren't there hundreds of them? Why aren't they swarming the skies and clearing the heavens of Allied bombers? The Americans need answers. They need to understand the beast. And most importantly, they need to know if the rumors are true that this technology is not just about speed, but about a new type of warfare that could reach the shores of the United States. Every pilot flying over Germany is now looking over their shoulder, scanning for the smoke trails, waiting for the swallow to strike. The psychological toll is mounting. The sky is no longer safe. And then, on a cold morning in October, a break in the mystery occurs. Not in the air, but on the ground. A reconnaissance photo taken over a deep forest airfield in Bavaria reveals something that chills the blood of the analysts in Washington. It isn't just one plane, it is a row of them. Inside the cockpit of the Messerschmitt Me-262, the sensation is entirely alien. For a German pilot used to the violent vibration, the smell of exhaust fumes, and the deafening roar of a piston engine, this new machine feels unnatural. It is quiet. It is smooth. General of Fighters Adolf Galland, after his first flight in 1943, famously reported, "It felt as if angels were pushing." But beneath that angelic grace lies a mechanical nightmare. While American intelligence officers are losing sleep over the speed of this phantom, they are missing the desperate reality on the ground in Germany. The mystery of the Me-262 is not just its speed, it is its fragility. The heart of the beast is the Junkers Jumo 004 engine. It is the first mass-produced axial-flow turbojet in history. It is a marvel of engineering, but it is built on a foundation of scarcity. Germany is running out of rare metals. They have no chromium, they have no nickel. These are the heat-resistant metals required to keep a jet engine from melting itself. So, the German engineers are forced to innovate with desperation. They build the combustion chambers out of simple sheet steel, coated in aluminum. It is a temporary fix for a permanent problem. When a German pilot pushes the throttle forward, he is playing Russian roulette with physics. If he advances the throttle too quickly, the fuel floods the chamber, the temperature spikes, and the engine catches fire. It is called a flameout. If he moves the throttle too slowly, the compressor stalls, and the plane falls out of the sky. The engine life of a Jumo 004 is startlingly short, 10 hours, sometimes 25 hours if the pilot is lucky. After that, the engine must be ripped out and replaced. While American P-51 Mustang aircraft can fly hundreds of hours without major maintenance, the German jets are spending more time in the repair hangars than in the air. This is the first layer of the mystery that baffles the Allies. They see a weapon that could win the war, yet it appears only in blips. Why? The second layer is not mechanical, it is political, and it is far more damaging. It is late 1943. The Me-262 is ready for mass production as a fighter interceptor. Its sole purpose is to hunt down the vast formations of American B-17 bombers that are turning German cities into rubble. One jet fighter, armed with 4 30mm cannons, can tear a heavy bomber in half with a 2-second burst. But at a demonstration in Insterburg, Adolf Hitler looks at the sleek, shark-like jet and asks a single question: can this aircraft carry bombs? The engineers and generals are stunned. This is a thoroughbred racehorse, and the Führer wants to use it as a pack mule. They hesitate. They nod. Yes, mein Führer, theoretically. Hitler issues an order that changes history. He forbids the production of the Me-262 as a fighter. He demands it be built as a Blitz bomber, a high-speed bomber to strike at the Allied invasion forces on the beaches of France. It is a strategic catastrophe. To carry bombs, the sleek jet is weighed down. Its aerodynamics are ruined. Its speed advantage is negated. The pilots, trained to hunt, are told to fly low and drop explosives on trucks and tanks. The American pilots encountering the Me-262 inches 1944 do not know any of this. All they see is a paradox. They see a plane that moves like lightning but behaves with bizarre caution. They report Me-262 aircraft flying straight and level, ignoring the bombers they should be attacking. They see them carrying heavy external loads that slow them down. US Army Air Force's intelligence begins to wonder if the Germans have simply lost their nerve. Or perhaps, is this a trap? Is the turbo a distraction while something even worse is being prepared? Meanwhile, the psychological terror continues to mount. Even utilized incorrectly, the jet is terrifying. Major George Preddy, the top P-51 Mustang ace of the war, describes the frustration. He spots a Me-262. He dives. He pushes his engine to the breaking point. The German pilot simply engages his climb and vanishes. There is no dogfight. There is only an encounter, and then an escape. The Americans are the masters of the air, yet they cannot close the kill. The Allies realize they cannot fight the physics of the jet engine. They need a new strategy. They need to stop thinking like knights of the air and start thinking like assassins. The solution is brutal. If they cannot catch the Me-262 while it is flying at 540 miles per hour, they will catch it when it is slow. The German jets have a weakness. They need long concrete runways to take off and land. They accelerate slowly. On approach to landing, they are vulnerable, low on fuel, and flying just above stall speed. American commanders authorize rat scrambles. P-51 Mustang aircraft and Hawker Tempest aircraft are ordered to roam deep into German territory. They are not looking for dogfights. They are loitering over the known jet airfields, places like Achme and Rhein. They hover like hawks waiting for a field mouse. As a Me-262 pilot lines up his final approach, his wheels down, his speed bleeding off, he is helpless. He cannot accelerate quickly to escape because his engines will flame out. He is a sitting duck. The Americans swoop down. They strafe the jets as they touch the tarmac. They shoot them while they are taxiing. It is not a fair fight. It is a slaughter. But even this creates a new mystery. As the Allies inspect the wreckage of these destroyed jets on the ground, they find things that don't make sense. They find strange guidance systems. They find evidence of advanced radio equipment. And in the pockets of the dead German pilots, they sometimes find maps that don't show Germany. They show flight paths extending out over the Atlantic. The fear shifts. The Me-262 is clearly just the first generation. If the Germans can build a jet that flies over Europe, how long until they build one that can cross the ocean? Intelligence reports from the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, start trickling in about a project deep in the Harz Mountains. Underground factories, slave labor, digging tunnels into the rock. They are hiding the production lines. The Americans realize that bombing the surface factories isn't enough. The Nazis are moving the technology underground. They are preparing for a long war. A war where jets are the standard, not the exception. And then a report comes in from a P-38 Lightning pilot that changes everything. He reports seeing a Me-262. But it wasn't alone. It was flying in formation with something else. Something smaller. Something that didn't have wings at all. The Allies are about to discover that the jet engine was just the opening act. The Germans are unlocking the secrets of the sound barrier, and they are doing it while their country burns around them. The race is no longer just to win the war. It is a race to capture the mind of the enemy before it is destroyed. The hunt for the technology begins in earnest. It is no longer about shooting down the planes, it is about stealing them. Spring 1945, the Third Reich is collapsing. The map of Europe is being redrawn in blood and fire. The American and British armies are pressing from the west. The Soviet Red Army is a steamroller coming from the east. But amidst the chaos of the crumbling front lines, a different kind of war is starting. It is a war fought in the shadows, not for territory, but for intellectual property. The Allied commanders have realized something terrifying. The deeper they push into Germany, the more they realize how little they actually know. They are stumbling upon research facilities that look like science fiction sets. They find wind tunnels capable of simulating speeds that Allied scientists thought were impossible. They find blueprints for rockets, guided missiles, and strange flying wings. The Phantom Me-262 jets are no longer just enemy combatants to be destroyed. They are the most valuable prizes on the continent. Enter Colonel Harold Watson. Watson is not a typical soldier. He is a hunter. His unit is officially known as the Air Technical Intelligence Teams, but history will remember them by their nickname, Watson's Whizzers. Their orders are part of a classified initiative called Operation Lusty Luftwaffe Secret Technology. Their mission is simple and dangerous. Get the jets, get the scientists, get the data, and do it before the Soviets do. The timeline is brutal. The Yalta Conference has already divided up post-war Germany. Zones of occupation have been drawn on a map. Intelligence reports indicate that some of the most advanced Luftwaffe testing grounds, including the massive complex at Rechlin, fall directly into the Soviet occupation zone. It is a race against the clock. Watson and his men are effectively looting a burning building while the police are at the door. In April 1945, Watson's team arrives at the Lager-Lechfeld airfield in Bavaria. What they find there stops them in their tracks. It is a graveyard of the future. Dozens of Me-262 jets are scattered across the airfield. Some are pristine, parked in neat rows. Others are smashed, their spines broken by retreating German troops who used sledgehammers and explosives to destroy their own creations. The smell of kerosene and burning rubber hangs heavy in the air. Watson's mechanics, men who have spent the war wrenching on piston-engine P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft and P-51 Mustang aircraft, climb onto the wings of these sharks. They run their hands over the skin. They peer into the cockpits. They are shocked by what they see. The cockpit of the Me-262 is not the crude workspace of a desperate nation. It is ergonomic. It is advanced. But the real shock comes when they open the engine cowlings. They expect to find a mess of wires and heavy steel. Instead, they find the Jumo 004 engine. It is elegant in its simplicity. It is a tube of fire. But as the American engineers begin to study the airframe, a sinking feeling sets in. They realize they have been wrong. For years, American aerodynamicists believed that swept-back wings that are angled backward like an arrowhead, would cause uncontrollable instability at low speeds. They believed a plane with swept wings would crash on takeoff. Because of this belief, the Americans and British designed their first jet prototypes, the P-80 Shooting Star and the Gloucester Meteor, with straight wings. They look at the Me-262. Its wings are swept back at 18.5 degrees. The Germans had solved the stability problem. They used automatic leading-edge slats, panels that pop out on the front of the wing to grab the air at low speeds. It is a simple, mechanical solution to a complex aerodynamic problem. The realization hits the Americans like a physical blow. The straight-wing jets they are currently building back in California and London are already obsolete. They are building Model Ts while the Germans are building Ferraris. If the war had lasted another 6 months, if Hitler had not interfered, if the materials had not run out, the skies of Europe would have been a no-fly zone for the Allies. But the thrill of discovery is cut short by the roar of artillery. The front line is moving. The Soviets are getting closer. The Whizzers have to move. They select the best aircraft, the flight-worthy ones. But there is a problem. No American has ever flown a Me-262. The manuals are in German. The cockpit gauges are in metric. The controls are sensitive. They do the unthinkable. They recruit the enemy. German test pilots, men who were shooting at American bombers just weeks ago, are rounded up. They are offered a deal. Help us fly these planes out of here, away from the Soviets, and you will be treated well. Refuse, and you take your chances with the Red Army. The choice is easy. The German pilots are terrified of the Soviets. In a surreal scene, American stars and bars are hastily painted over the German crosses on the fuselages. One by one, The shark-like jets scream down the runway, piloted by a mix of American daredevils and defecting Germans. They blast off toward France, carrying the secrets of the future with them. But the biggest twist is yet to come. As Watson's team scours the offices of the captured airfields, they find filing cabinets, thousands of pages of documents. They find microfilm. They start reading, and what they find in those papers makes the Me-262 look like a toy. The Me-262 was just the beginning. The documents detail the next generation, designs for the Me-P 1101, a plane with wings that can change their angle in mid-flight. Designs for the Focke-Wulf Tar 183, a stubby jet that looks suspiciously like a plane the world will soon know as the MiG-15. The Americans realized that the Germans weren't just a few years ahead. In the field of high-speed aerodynamics, they were a decade ahead. And then, the ultimate horror. Intelligence confirms that a massive cache of these documents, and perhaps the key scientists themselves, is located in a research facility that has just been overrun by Soviet troops. The Americans have the hardware. They have the planes. But the Soviets might have the theory. They might have the blueprints that explain why the planes work. The celebration of victory fades instantly. The hot war is ending, but a cold chill descends over the intelligence community. They have captured the body of the beast, but they fear the Soviets have captured its brain. The question is no longer, how do we defeat the Nazis? The question is, what happens when the Soviet Union builds these? The Americans rush the captured jets to the coast. They load them onto the aircraft carrier HMS Reaper. They are bringing the prize home to Wright Field in Ohio. They think they are safe. But they are about to discover that the influence of the Me-262 cannot be contained by the ocean. The ghost of this machine is about to haunt the skies of a new war in a place called Korea. Wright Field, Ohio. 1946. The war is over. The parades have ended. But inside the hangars of the Air Materiel Command, the mood is grim. The American military establishment is currently digesting a very bitter pill. US Army Air Force's test pilots are conducting head-to-head trials between their brand-new, top-secret jet fighter, the P-80 Shooting Star, and the captured Nazi Me-262. On paper, the American P-80 should be the superior machine. It was built by the legendary Kelly Johnson at Lockheed. It is sleek, polished, and represents the pinnacle of American industrial might. The Me-262, by contrast, is a war-weary fugitive. Its engines are temperamental junk that catch fire if you look at them wrong. Its manufacturing is crude, built by slave labor in damp caves. The two jets take off. They climb to altitude. They race. The results are devastating. The Nazi relic, despite being heavier and underpowered, walks away from the American jet. At high speeds, the P-80 hits an invisible wall. It starts to shudder. The controls stiffen. It is the phenomenon of compressibility, the air bunching up in front of the wings like snow in front of a plow. The straight wings of the P-80 simply cannot cut through it. The Me-262, with its swept-back wings, slices through the air. It handles better. It flies smoother. The American engineers standing on the tarmac are forced to confront a humiliating reality. The United States, the victor of the war, the new superpower of the world, is technologically second-rate. They won the war with quantity, logistics, and grit. They did not win it with better aerodynamics. If the war had gone on until 1946, the P-80 would have been food for the Me-262. This realization triggers a panic behind the scenes. The US Army Air Forces, soon to become the US Air Force, halts development on its next generation of fighters. They scrap the blueprints. The XP-86, a project by North American Aviation to build a new fighter, is originally designed with straight wings. It looks like a standard plane. The engineers take a machete to the design. They look at the captured German data, thousands of microfilm documents from the fierce wind tunnels of Göttingen and Braunschweig. They see the research of a German aerodynamicist named Adolf Bussmann, who had proposed the swept wing back in 1935. The Americans realize they have to copy the enemy. They redesign the XP-86. They sweep the wings back to 35 degrees. They add the automatic leading-edge slats found on the Me-262. They are essentially building an American successor to the German jet. They name it the F-86 Sabre. But while the Americans are busy learning from the past, a terrifying silence has fallen over the East. The Soviet Union has gone dark. The Iron Curtain has descended. American intelligence knows that the Soviets captured the other half of the German research. They captured the Junkers factory. They captured the BMW jet engine plant. And most worryingly, they captured the brains. But the CIA and the Pentagon are not overly concerned. Their assessment is arrogant. They believe that even with German blueprints, the Soviet Union lacks the metallurgy and the precision manufacturing to build a high-performance jet engine. A jet engine requires turbine blades that can spin at thousands of revolutions per minute while being heated to temperatures that melt steel. It requires a level of industrial sophistication that the agrarian Soviet economy simply does not possess. The Americans estimate it will take the Russians 5 to 10 years to build a competitive jet. They are wrong. They are fatally wrong. They forgot about the British. In one of the most baffling transfers of technology in the 20th century, the British government, under a trade agreement, sells 25 of their most advanced jet engines, the Rolls-Royce Nene, to the Soviet Union in 1947. They do this on the condition that the engines are used only for civilian purposes. Stalin reportedly laughs when he hears this. "What fool would sell us his secrets?" he asks. The Soviets take the Nene engine apart. They reverse engineer it. They solve the metallurgy problem. And then they hand this engine to the design bureau of Mikoyan and Gurevich. The Soviet engineers take the powerful British engine. They take the aerodynamic data from the captured German Focke-Wulf TAR-183, a design for a single-engine jet that never flew but existed in wind tunnel models. The TAR-183 had a high tail, a short fuselage, and aggressively swept wings. They mate the British heart with the German skeleton. The result is the MiG-15. The Americans do not know this plane exists. They are confident in their air superiority. Then comes November 1st, 1950. The location is North Korea, near the Yalu River. A flight of American P-51 Mustang aircraft and a jet-powered F-80, the redesignated P-80, are flying a combat patrol. The Korean War has been raging for months. The Americans own the sky. The North Korean Air Force, flying propeller-driven Yak-9 aircraft, has been wiped out. Suddenly, a formation of silver arrows dives out of the Sunday. The American pilots are confused. These planes are small. They are fast, incredibly fast. They have swept wings. They open fire with massive cannons, 37mm and 23mm guns that fire distinct, heavy red tracers. The American F-80 pilot pushes his throttle to the firewall. He is flying the plane that the US thought was the future just 4 years ago. The enemy jets blow past him like he is standing still. They climb at a rate that seems physically impossible. They slash through the American formation, damage several planes, and then zoom back up into the safety of Chinese airspace. The reports that come back to Washington trigger a shockwave that makes the Me-262 scare look like a minor incident. This is not just a fast plane. This is a Category 1 threat. The MiG-15 is faster than the F-80. It is faster than the F-84 Thunderjet. It can outclimb, outturn, and outgun everything in the US inventory. The impossible has happened. The Soviet Union, a country the US wrote off as technologically backward, has fielded a world-class jet fighter years before the CIA predicted. How? The US Air Force rushes the F-86 Sabre to Korea. It is the only card they have left to play. It is the only plane with swept wings capable of matching the MiG-15. And this is where the reveal, the true shock of the narrative comes into focus. In December 1950, over the frozen wasteland of MiG-Alley in northwest Korea, the F-86 Sabre and the MiG-15 meet for the first time. It is the first all-jet dogfight in history. Two swept-wing machines swirling around each other at 600 miles per hour, breaking the sound barrier in dives, pushing the limits of human endurance. But look closely at the two planes. The American F-86 Sabre, the Soviet MiG-15. If you strip away the paint, if you squint your eyes, they look like brothers. They both have the same swept wings at nearly the same angle. They both have the same intake designs. They both use the same slat technology to stay in the air at low speeds. The pilots fighting each other, an American boy from Kansas and a Soviet volunteer from Moscow, think they are fighting a war between capitalism and communism. They think this is a battle between East and West. They are wrong. They are both flying German planes. The F-86 Sabre is the spiritual successor to the Me-262's aerodynamic research. The MiG-15 is the ghost of the Focke-Wulf Tar. 183. The shock isn't that the Nazis built a fast plane in 1944. The shock is that the Nazis effectively designed the Korean War. The technological lineage is undeniable. The German obsession with speed, their discovery of the swept wing, and their radical engine concepts did not die with the Third Reich. The technology was simply split in half. One half went to California, the other half went to Moscow. And in the skies over Korea, those two halves have finally come back together to try and kill each other. The dominance of the Me-262 was never about the physical airframes that were destroyed on the ground in 1945. It was about the idea. The Me-262 broke the timeline of aviation history. It forced every other nation to throw away their textbooks and start over. But the mystery isn't quite solved yet. We know the machines are related. We know the aerodynamics came from the same source. But there is one final, lingering question that haunts the analysts even after the Korean War settles into a stalemate. The Me-262 had a fatal flaw. Its engines were weak. They melted. The MiG-15 and the F-86, however, were robust. They were reliable. How did both sides solve the engine problem so quickly? The British Naney engine explains the Soviet side, but the Americans? The answer lies in a single, often overlooked detail deep in the recovered files of Operation Paperclip. It turns out that the Germans hadn't just solved the aerodynamics. In the final months of the war, deep in the Austrian Alps, they were working on something else. Something that wouldn't just make planes fast, but would make them invisible to the naked eye. The legacy of the Me-262 isn't just the F-86 or the MiG-15. It leads to something much darker, much faster, and much more secretive. The swept wing was just step one. The Germans had already drawn the shape of the ultimate weapon, a shape that wouldn't fly for another 30 years. The stealth fighter. The Me-262 was not the end of the propeller age. It was the prologue to the age of black projects. And as we will see, the shadow of the Luftwaffe stretches all the way to the deserts of Nevada in the 1980s. The legacy of the Me-262 does not end in the frozen skies of Korea. The realization that the F-86 Sabre and the MiG-15 were essentially estranged siblings, children of the same German parents, forced a total shift in global military thinking. But there is one final chapter to this mystery, a chapter that remained classified for decades. While the Me-262 was terrifying Allied pilots with its speed, another German design was sitting in a hangar in Friedrichsroda, waiting to change the definition of warfare entirely. When the US troops of the 9th Armored Division captured the facility in April 1945, they found the Horten Ho 229. It was a jet, powered by the same Junkers Jumo 004 engines as the Me-262, but it had no tail. It had no fuselage. It was a pure flying wing. It looked like a bat made of charcoal grey plywood and steel. The soldiers didn't know what to make of it. It looked unstable. It looked impossible. They crated it up and sent it to the United States, alongside the Me-262 seconds. For years it sat in storage at the Smithsonian, a curiosity of a defeated regime. Fast forward to 1988. Palmdale, California. The United States Air Force reveals its newest strategic bomber, the B-2 Spirit. It is a flying wing. It is sleek, alien, and invisible to radar. It is the most expensive and advanced aircraft ever built. When aviation historians looked at the B-2 Spirit, and then looked back at the dusty photos of the Horten Ho 229 from 1945, the resemblance was chilling. The geometry was nearly identical. In 2008, a team of engineers from Northrop Grumman, the makers of the B-2, went to the Smithsonian. They scanned the surviving German Horten jet. They built a full-scale replica. They wanted to answer a question that had lingered since the war. Did the Nazis accidentally invent stealth technology? They put the replica in a modern radar range. The results were shocking. The German wood and glue jet, designed in 1944, had a significantly reduced radar cross-section. It wasn't invisible like a modern stealth fighter, but it was ghostly. If the Me-262 was the grandfather of the F-15 and the Su-27, the Horten was the grandfather of the B-2. The Me-262 was the spark that ignited the jet age. It proved that the propeller was dead. It proved that speed was the new armor. But its true legacy is not in the planes it shot down, or the pilots it killed. Its true legacy is the complete rewriting of the laws of aviation. Every time you see a commercial airliner with swept-back wings, you are looking at data derived from German wind tunnels. Every time you see a fighter jet scream overhead, you are hearing the echo of the Junkers Jumo 004 engine. Every time you hear about stealth, you are seeing the shadow of the secret projects that grew alongside the Me-262. The Me-262 failed to save the Third Reich. In fact, its delay and mismanagement hastened the end of the war. But in its failure, it succeeded in something far more enduring. It conquered the future. The Allies won the war, but in the skies above us, we are still flying in the world the Me-262 created.